Longworth, and welcome to another edition of Triad Today, coming to you once again. As you can hear the birds chirping from our home away from home, the Senior Botanical Garden. Beautiful place. We'll tell you more about it later in the program. Speaking of later, that's when our roundtable shows up. They'll get into all sorts of controversial topics, and we have some great guests and important information coming your way between now and then. But first, I want to start out talking about something very, very important, and it's an exciting program. It's something called the College Guarantee Program, and we have two very special guests with us right now. On my immediate right, a first-time visitor to the show. We've tried to get her here forever, and now she's finally here. Dr. Janet Spriggs is president of Forsyth Tech. Welcome to the show and the garden.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to finally be here.
Yeah, finally be here. And social distance sort of behind us is my good friend, Mayor Alan Joines, the Honorable Alan Joines, Mayor of the City of Winston-Salem. And thanks for being here, sir.
Good to be here, Jim.
Alan, I'm going to start with you. What is this College Guarantee Program all about? What is it? Why was it developed?
Jim, we've got a comprehensive effort to reduce poverty in our community, and we felt like one of the best ways to break that cycle is to help disadvantaged young people be able to go to college. And so we put together this idea that any young person who graduates from a high school here in Forsyth County that wants to go to Forsyth Technical Community College but can't afford it can go absolutely free. Tuition, books, fees, even some money in there for transportation, money for child care. So Dr. Spriggs can take them for 2 years and turn them around and get a great career going.
I just think that is great. And of course, that's just a natural extension of what you've been doing with the homelessness and with poverty,
Right.
that you've been leading the way. I congratulate you on that. Let me turn over to you, Janet. What's the criteria for how students are selected to get into the College Guarantee Program?
Well, the first criteria is that they graduate from a Forsyth County high school, and the next criteria is based on income. So we have them fill out the FAFSA, which is the federal application for financial aid, and that tells us what their estimated family contribution will be. We base their award on their estimated family contribution, and it's also important to note that this is a last dollar scholarship. So we use that FAFSA to also determine if there's federal or other scholarship aid available to the student before the college guarantee, or what we call the Hope and Opportunity Scholarship, is applied to help them to make their money go further, really. Because if we can use federal aid to cover tuition and maybe books, then we can apply the Hope and Opportunity money to help them stay in school and persist by helping with transportation and child care, as the mayor mentioned.
I didn't realize that was a part of that. That's just fascinating. And that's been working or can work with the number of individuals so far, do you think?
Absolutely. We had 1,100 students, almost 1,100 students that qualified this year that we reached out to and recruited, and we had 696 of them as of yesterday who registered at Forsyth Tech.
How about that? Yeah. Alan, how is this whole thing? I know that Janet referenced that there are federal funds available, but in general, how is this whole thing being funded?
Well, Janet and I sat down and tried to figure out what it would take it to run this for 6 years, because we didn't want it to just be a drop in the pan.
Right.
So we came up with a number, and I went to Kelly King, who is the CEO of BB&T, now Truist,
right,
and made a pitch to Kelly. He's very interested in addressing poverty, and BB&T Truist gave us a grant that covers it for the full 6-year period.
Wow. That's just something else. Janet, now let's look ahead now. What kind of a role do you think that community colleges and technical colleges will play in bringing us out of this sort of pandemic economy and the situation we're in? What role do you think you're going to play?
Well, I think that we are going to be a critical player in that work. We always are. Whenever we have been in a recessionary period, the community college system in North Carolina has been a driver for economic recovery and the workforce preparedness and workforce development required to help rebuild and re-stimulate the economy and to prepare the workers for the jobs and the new jobs that always come out of any type of recessionary economic time.
And Alan, that's going to bode well for the overall economy to have these kids coming out of school?
Absolutely. We estimate these young people will be making $40,000 or $50,000 a year, and if you think about, we think we're going to do 2,600, 3,000 of these young people, so that's going to have a major impact on our economy.
Wow, that's just terrific. Up on screen, a couple of things I want you to check out, the folks at home, www.forsythtech.edu for the radio listening audience on WSJS, also forsythtech.edu. Please check that out, learn more about Forsyth Tech, and if you want to keep up with things that the mayor and the city's doing, that's cityofws.org, and we hope you will do that. The two of you not only make a great team, but you're making a great difference, and I want to thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right.
That's what we're here for.
We'll be right back after this. Back now on Triad Today, and let's talk about senior care and community outreach together. And we have an expert who knows about both of those. Next to me, Taylor Thornton is Director of Community Relations for Kerner Ridge and Arbor Ridge in Kernersville, part of the Ridge Care family. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I was going to say welcome to the garden, but you've been here a lot of times.
Yeah, second home for me.
Yeah, because you used to be with the Chamber of Commerce in Kernersville. So, but we're glad you're doing this with Ridge Care. Now, what does it mean to have the title? Usually, I don't ask people to do this and explain the title because that can be boring. If I say, well, what do I do? But in your case, what does it mean to be in charge of community relations? What does that mean for a senior care facility?
Well, I think with Ridge Care, we wanted to, especially in Kernersville, we have two properties that are so close together. In Kerner Ridge, our assisted living community, and Arbor Ridge at Kernersville, our independent living community. So we wanted someone who is familiar with the town. I grew up in Kernersville,
right.
And like you said, I worked at the Chamber of Commerce. So we wanted someone to be able to tie in the community background and know people here, because when you're making a move to a senior living community, it's always a tough decision.
Yeah.
So it helps when you know somebody. So especially if they go to your church or your neighbor, or you've been in Lions Club with them.
Sure.
So that's the community outreach part. But my main role is to help with sales. But the biggest part of my job that I love the most is not only being able to help families, but staying involved in the Kernersville community.
Right, and we're going to talk about a technological thing you're doing in just a second. But now, you mentioned something in an email to me about continuum of care. What is that in the sense of why it's important for seniors?
Well, like I said prior, it's so hard to make a decision to move into senior care, whether that's retirement living or assisted living community, whether it's for you or a loved one. So we're able to offer a unique continuum of care here in Kernersville. So you can start out in our independent living community, you can live there, you can drive, you can be independent, you can age with grace and dignity.
That's what I'm trying to do right now.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
And then as soon as you get to where you need just a little bit more assistance, we can make a very smooth transition to Kerner Ridge, which is 6 minutes from front door to front door, and we can be there to help you. It's the same staff. I work with you through both processes.
Isn't that great?
Yeah,
That's
it's
great.
just wonderful.
You mentioned something too to me before we started taping the show about a Facebook Live program, and it's called Words from the Ridge.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty exciting. What is that all about? What's the purpose?
The purpose really was within quarantine, everybody was stuck at home, and so we had to find a creative way to reach people in their homes. And Words from the Ridge was just a really great idea that we kind of worked on, and it's every first and third Thursday of the month. It's a live Zoom video, but if you can't join us live to ask questions with our speakers, you can always watch it. We record it and post it on our Ridge Care Facebook page.
Okay.
But we just interview different people. It's not always about senior living or assisted living or services that we offer. We interviewed Fitz from Fitz on Main, which was awesome because he's just a great guy, David Fitzpatrick, and
right.
Just different topics in the community. We interviewed a local school principal, Donald Wyatt, and just talking about everything that they're having to go through. And it's just been really fun to reach out to our community members that way.
Now, but you also cover, senior care, living topics and things like that. But I think it's great you're keeping people up on that. Now, I think you mentioned that if you miss it, you can watch it later on Facebook. But now I'm not very technologically minded. How do you join that conversation if you say first and third Thursdays? How do I get into that?
Yeah, so you just shoot me an email and you let us know that you're interested. It's at 10 a.m. and we send you a Zoom link. So you sign up via Zoom.
Okay.
And then you just join. It's just kind of like a Zoom meeting, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with at this point in time.
Well, don't look at me.
Not you, Jim.
They're laughing out there with it. All right, it's Words from the Ridge, first and third Thursdays, 10 a.m. Now I want to put up the website, but I also want you to tell us your email address. The website, ridgecare.com, for the radio listening audience, ridgecare.com. 336-993-7555 is the main number. And then give me your email address again.
It's Taylor.Thornton, THORNTON, at ridgecare.com.
And then, all right, so I hope people will sign up for that. It's a neat program that you're doing. Thanks for everything you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, will you come back sometime?
Absolutely.
Today, and there's a topic that's been in the news for the last couple of years a lot, immigration. But something I'd like to explore right now is juvenile immigration and do it with an expert in that field, and she's with us right now. Next to me is Rosalind Torellis, attorney with Dummett, Fraden Attorneys at Law, and we had a little discussion beforehand because I wanted to call her Rosaline, and she said that's what most people call her too. So, I might call you anything by the time this is over with.
There you go. As far as it's nothing
Yeah.
bad, call me.
I won't call you anything bad. Born in Venezuela.
Yes.
And here now, and I just think I'm glad that you're here. But now tell us something. You emailed me something with a phrase, and I want to ask you about this phrase. You said something about special immigrant juvenile status.
Correct.
What does that mean?
So SIJS for short, that is a status that provides certain children undocumented the ability to seek for legal permanent residence inside of the United States.
Okay, now who exactly can apply?
So it have to be an undocumented child, and that the court has found that one or both parents have abandoned, neglected, or anything similar with law, provide the custody to someone else, and the child is not in their best interest to return to their home country.
One or both parents. So a
Correct.
single mom, let's say who came up from Nicaragua with a child, and they said, well, the husband's gone for some reason. She can apply, or does she have to have a sponsor to apply, or what happens?
It will be the child who will apply.
Child technically applies.
Correct.
Okay. Now, give me an example of a couple, not in detail, but there are a lot of steps involved. You told me one time, a lot of steps involved to this process. Give me an example of a couple of steps that you have to go through on this.
So step number one have to be a custody order that the child has been granted to given to someone else. It could be a individual, it could be a state, or an actual place, okay? That's the first step. The step number two, once we have the custody order, then we have to do a self-petition with the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, or USCIS for short.
Right.
And then step three would be to actually apply for the legal permanent resident for that child.
What are the benefits? This might seem like a stupid question, but what are the benefits of obtaining this special juvenile status as you enter this process? I mean, what's the benefit of it?
The benefit of it is that when you apply for legal permanent resident, there are certain inadmissibility, such as not being able to self-sustain or not being able to enter the United States legally. So with an SIJS, you don't have to worry about those.
Now, when we didn't talk about this beforehand, but I'm just curious. You're talking about a child. Would that be somebody under 18?
Correct. So for North Carolina, to do the child custody portion, you have to be less than 18.
Under 18.
Correct.
And at what point, I mean, can these children who are applying for this status start on a path to citizenship right away, or what happens?
So once they get the legal permanent resident, they will have to have it for 5 years, and then after that, they can apply for citizenship. It's as any other person. You have to prove good moral character. You have to prove that you do not owe any taxes, that you're inside of the United States, that you haven't done anything criminal. So it's like anyone else.
Why do you look at me when you say do anything criminal? That's just.
I mean,
I think
all
you
of us
just-
do
yeah,
something
you
at
just-
some
yeah,
point,
you just
right?
No, I'm just picking at you. But you told me something off camera. I wanted it because we have just a minute left. You said something about how long you had wanted to be an attorney. When did that start?
5 years old.
You were 5 years old and knew you wanted to be an attorney.
Yes, I just didn't know which kind, but yes.
Yeah. Now, why was that attractive to you at 5?
First, my dad tells me I wanted to be an architect, and we talked about how that's more male-oriented in Venezuela. So I said, an attorney.
Yeah.
There is a lot of injustices happening in Venezuela,
Yeah, yeah.
especially being a female and a male. So
Yeah.
I just changed a little bit the path here, and I became an immigration attorney.
I'm so glad you did. Up on screen, I want to share some information with the audience. dummettfraden.com for the radio listening audience. I'll say it again, dummettfraden.com. Or you can call their main number, 877-978-3218, to make an appointment and find out how to get to Rosaline. And I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for being here. We'll be right back. Back now on Triad Today, and gosh, over the last 5 or 6 months, we talked a lot about COVID-19 and the pandemic, as well we should, and how it's affected just about everybody's life. Fortunately, there is a fund that was established, and we want to talk about what that fund is and what it's doing for the community. With me is our good friend of the show who's been here before, Reginald McCaskill, is President and CEO of Maximum Enterprises, Inc. Good to have you back, sir.
Glad to be with you, Jim.
Tell us a little something about this COVID-19 Response Fund for Forsyth County. What does that mean?
Well, the COVID-19 fund actually started back in March of this year as a result of the pandemic. The Winston-Salem Foundation and the United Way of Forsyth County came together to actually be the head of this distribution of those dollars.
And manage it.
Yeah, and manage the actual dollars that were given by private and public ventures. So it was a great experience to be a part of as a team member and a committee member that we gave out almost $2.7 million.
Good gosh. Now, how was the, I know you don't have statistics on where every dollar went, but I'm just curious. I know that the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation, the good folks there, made a grant to the Response Fund. Was that targeted to help certain groups, certain populations? I mean, bring me up to speed on
Right.
that.
I know that you know that when it comes to the demographics of how we gave out the dollars, of course, we gave out dollars to individuals who had applied for it. There were nonprofit agencies throughout Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. The Z. Smith Foundation actually geared their money towards the TMAX committee or group
Right.
that works specifically with the Latino group
Gotcha.
here in Winston-Salem, and they really wanted to pay focus to that because of the issues that they were having that were rising up.
Do you have, and I'm going to put you on the spot here because we hadn't rehearsed any of this. I mean, do you feel like it's had a good effect and there's been some benefit and you've gotten some, what kind of feedback? Just to help me with that.
Well, I think where we were as far as nonprofits in the country, everybody is at a struggling point when it relates to trying to survive through the pandemic. And I do think that the funds were needed, and I think they used them accordingly. And I think everybody that did receive funds actually benefited from using it. And the overall arching objective is just to make sure that the people are being served and still receiving a good quality of life.
Yeah, and we want to reemphasize something you said a minute ago, which is it's not something where just anybody, I can't just call up and say, I want some funding.
Right.
You've got to be a nonprofit organization. Do you have any indication, have you talked about it with your committee, if there's going to be a next round of funding? I mean, what does the future hold?
Interesting enough, the next round of funding started today.
Really?
Actually started today.
And we're actually taping, what's today? We're September the 16th, right?
16th.
16th.
Right.
And we're going to be on the air this weekend.
Right.
But, that's cool.
They can actually go online and of course make application through the Winston-Salem Foundation and go under grant seekers.
Right.
And from that point, they need to go directly to the COVID-19 relief fund.
I want to put some information up on screen because Reginald mentioned the Winston-Salem Foundation. You can go to that website because you can also, by going to wsfoundation.org, not only learn about this program, but also they can help you with making donations if you want to make a donation or donate something to the foundation. But a special thanks to our good friends at Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation, who not only makes grants but takes an interest in everything that's going on in the region, and we appreciate them for suggesting this. ZSR.org is their website. Quickly, before we run out of time, a lot of folks may remember that you came on last month to talk about the expo.
Right.
How did that go?
The expo was phenomenal. I can just tell you I was extremely excited about the participation for the virtual expo that we had. We had vendors from as far as Canada this year.
Wow.
So it kind of expanded. I don't want to change the name from the Triad Minority Business Expo to the World Expo, but
Yeah.
We had representation from LA, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, and Canada this year. So the expo actually did what it needed to do, and we're excited about next year.
Hooked up people, help with
Yeah.
networking, help with, I just think that's great.
Right, it was outstanding.
So you'll keep me posted on next
I
year's
definitely
thing.
will. I definitely will.
Reginald, thanks for all you do, sir.
Glad to be with you again, Jim.
All right. We'll be right back. Today, just about time for the round table. A couple quick notes. One, hope you pick up your copy of Yes Weekly. It's free. It's available just about everywhere. If you can't find a copy, go online. Also, another shout out to the good folks here at Senior Botanical Garden. The website's up on screen, seniorbotanicalgarden.org. You can have your weddings and receptions out here. Come around, look at the blooming flowers. It's great. And one other thing, the North Carolina Healthcare Association is holding the first of a series of virtual town halls about healthcare. You'll be able to interact and talk with the hospital CEOs. The first one's on September 22nd, 1 to 2 p.m. nchealthcare.org is the website. I'll be moderating that series of virtual town halls. Now, speaking of three virtual guys, on my right, but always political left, Ogie Overman, the great broadcaster and journalist. Social distant behind him, Dr. Don Martin, who is vice chair of the Forsyth County Commissioners and bringing up the rear, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. Keith Granberry, who is founder of Helping Hands Consultants. All right, guys, let's get to it. The director of Smith Reynolds Airport said last week that Trump's rally was, quote unquote, great exposure for the airport. He hoped Biden would come as well. Given that thousands of people failed to wear masks or social distance, guys, was the rally great exposure for our area? Ogie.
What it was great exposure for several thousand people getting exposed to the Trump virus out there.
Bad move.
Bad move.
Don.
Bad move.
Well, I think Trump was. I think exposure was probably the wrong word, but it was a lot of logistics to bring that off. And I know the airport director, Mark Davison, and I think a lot of people came to Winston-Salem who had never been here, and I think we did a good job for them. And
Hope they didn't go away sick, though.
Well, but that's not the airport's fault.
Well, no. All right, Keith.
I think it is the airport's fault. I think it's everyone who's involved in this process fault. No one should be having people come into a place like that in that close proximity without PPE, mask, and the proper health protocol.
So I'm with Keith, though, Don. I mean, why couldn't the airport have just refused to let all those people in?
Well, they had PPE and they had masks. They had every bit of that. It was issued when people came in.
But they didn't. A lot of them didn't wear them.
I think the answer, when the President of the United States wants to come, I don't care who they are, you don't think you say no.
I disagree with that. Just because a president comes, you don't get people dying because a president shows up at an event. I think that's wrong.
Speaking of health risks, very quickly, after repeated warnings to a party house in Los Angeles, the mayor got tired of it, and he knew that people were at risk of COVID-19. He shut off the electricity to the house. Guys, very quickly, would you like to see Triad area mayors take steps like that to prevent the spread, Ogie?
Sure, I don't see that as being an extreme measure at all. That's a pretty rational thing to do.
I have no problem. I'm sure that's a little stretch of power, but it'd take a while for them to go to court and get it back on.
Yeah, I don't want nobody cutting my power off, but I do want them to come and do something about the people who actually are having these events.
All right, Greensboro businessman and now U.S. Postmaster Louis DeJoy is in trouble again. First, he made a lot of severe cuts, got rid of machinery that we needed in the Postal Service. Now he has been investigated for allegedly having forced his former employees to make political donations, and he would reimburse them for them. Very quickly, guys, what's likely to happen to DeJoy? He keeps his job, he resigns and comes back to Greensboro, or he goes to prison. Ogie.
Well, as I mentioned last week, Josh Stein, Attorney General, has already indicated that he would prosecute him if it were his call, but it's actually the chairman of the Board of Elections' call. But after Trump resigns and can't pardon him, he could get indicted and could potentially do jail time.
Don.
I probably don't think anything will happen until after the election.
Keith.
Yeah, I think something will happen, and it's a shame because he's such a successful businessman, and
right.
to get entangled into this political mess, it's just a shame.
All right, earlier this year, a USA Today poll showed that 1 in 5 teachers would not return to the classroom as long as the pandemic was here, and they'd even retire if they had to. Last week, 36 teachers resigned in one Florida school district alone. Guys, and I particularly want to hear Don's reaction to this. Could the nation be facing a teacher shortage by early next year? Ogie.
I think there's no question about it. North Carolina already has a teacher shortage, so yeah, it's coming.
Don Martin.
I was going to say we have a serious shortage now. It's exacerbated during the pandemic. I do think things will come back after the vaccine's available.
Keith.
Yes, whenever that's available, whenever that's possible. But I think it's definitely going to be a teacher shortage. I know I have friends who are teachers, and they're terrified of going back into the classroom. Absolutely terrified.
So you think these polls are accurate?
Absolutely.
The Motion Picture Academy says that beginning in 2024, any film that wants to be nominated for Best Picture must meet 2 of 4 criteria to ensure diversity on screen and behind the scenes. Good idea? Or will the new rule intrude into the creative process? Ogie.
No, that's not an intrusion. In fact, Hollywood's already typically ahead of the curve anyway. A lot of them are doing it already, so it's not a big deal.
But not fast enough.
Now it's codified.
Right, Don.
I agree that will not interrupt the creative process. And quite frankly, movies set a tone for the country, and that's the proper tone to set.
Keith Granberry.
Yeah, one of the problems that movies have is that many of the African American and Latino movies, they don't have producers. None of them are in these roles. So while I think it needs to be done, I don't know about forcing someone to do something like that, but there should be rules and regulations in place so that people are getting jobs. That's most important, that there are jobs created for people of color in that industry.
Yeah, because the producers and directors are the ones that sort of influence the casting.
Absolutely.
To begin with. And all right, final thing, guys, Walmart is now using drones to deliver groceries in Fayetteville. I guess it's a test market. Would you want to have your groceries delivered by a drone, Ogie Overman?
I don't get things delivered anyway, really. I just go to the store, mask up and go to the store and buy
Go to
it.
the store with your mask on. Don, would you want
I have no problem with a drone delivering my groceries.
Keith, what about that? I mean, would you want a drone flying in to deliver your groceries?
I would rather have someone come and deliver them personally,
Right.
not a drone, just an individual just come and give me my groceries.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You feel me?
Well, I mean, no, I don't feel you. I keep thinking that, you know, if you got a dozen eggs, what if the drone drops them?
Yeah,
That's all I'm
yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, that would be
Well,
a terrible. No drones for me, Jim.
Yeah, that's right. Well, anyway, that's all the time we have. Oh, except for this. So speaking of that, a man called the FBI last night to report that he saw a low-flying drone delivering groceries in Fayetteville. Now, the authorities didn't disbelieve the drone story so much as they wondered why anybody would want to live in Fayetteville.
Wrong.
No, we like Fayetteville.
I love
We
Fayetteville.
like Fayetteville. I didn't mean what I said there. For all of us here in the Triad area, I'm Jim Longworth. We'll see you next week.